everybody, welcome back to this random journey. Today is day 16 of our book a week challenge, and I finished another book. I finished the Love Your Life Not Theirs. Again, I did a quick read and kind of skimmed over several parts of it, grabbing hold of the things that pertain to me. It was a really good book, and if you're struggling financially or if you're in a lot of debt, I highly recommend this book. It is very much like the Dave Ramsey book, in my opinion, or the Dave Ramsey kind of method. So if you know anything about him, that is really what this book is a lot about, and follows a lot of the same principles. And so it's just kind of one of those things that we've already implemented in our lives personally. So a lot of it was just repetition for me. And so for me personally, it was just kind of a boring read, just because it was repeating things I already have read or already knew or have already implemented. But for anyone who is struggling, like I said, with finances, it would be a perfect read. In the reading I did today, I read several chapters today just to finish it out. And it talked about retirement and different kinds of ways to invest your money and that kind of stuff. And then it also talked about giving and how the ultimate goal of being out of debt and living like no one else is so that you can eventually give like no one else and be able to help other people. So it's a great read if you want to learn about practical ways to overcome debt and get a handle on all of your finances. I highly recommend it. So that was Love Your Life Not Theirs by Rachel Cruz. All right. I also read in my Bible today, and I read 5 chapters in 2 Kings. And there was one thing that there's several things that stuck out to me, but one thing I'm going to mention to you guys is I was reading it in 2 Kings chapter 4, and it was the story of this lady. It never gives her name, but she makes a place for the prophet. I believe his name is Elijah. I always get Elijah and Elisha mixed up, because not only are they in the same storyline, because one mentored the other, but their names are so similar that I always mix them up. So anyways, if I mix that up, I'm so sorry. In the story, she had made a place in her home for the prophet, and that way anytime he passed through, he could stay with them. And then it goes on to say that he asked what the woman would want from this other person, and they said, well, she doesn't have any kids, you know. And so he called her in and said, you know, in the course of a year, or the time it takes to have a kid, you're going to be holding a son. And sure enough, she has a son, and he grows up a little bit, and then he gets like something wrong with his head, like a headache or something wrong with his head, and he's out in the field with his dad, and his dad sends him to the mom. Well, then the son dies in her arms, and so she goes and she lays the son out on the prophet's bed that she has made for him all the time. And the prophet is away. He's at Mount Carmel, a ways off. And she lays her son there, and then she goes out of her house and she tells her husband, you know, can I have, you know, a donkey, and can I have, you know, a servant, and can I go to the prophet? And, you know, he lets her go or what have you, but he's like, why are you going? It's not the Sabbath, and it's not, there's different things that he kept on saying. It's not this and it's not that. And anyway, so so it says in, I'm getting ahead of myself. It says in verse 22, and she called unto her husband and said, send me, I pray thee, one of the young men and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of God and come again. And he said, wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon or the Sabbath, nor the Sabbath. And she said, it shall be well. And I had to stop there when I got to that part where she spoke back to her husband. And instead of telling her husband, you know, our son has died, I'm going to the prophet so he can help us get our son, you know, to live again, she just said, it shall be well. She had the faith before going to the prophet. She didn't see the need in telling her husband of the horrible fate that their son has now had. Instead, she leaves him in the field to continue his work so she doesn't interrupt his day's work. But instead, she goes to the prophet, and she, as she is coming, the prophet sees her, and he sends a servant. And whenever she gets to talk to the servant before coming to the prophet, he asks the questions that the prophet had asked her about, is everything okay? And she said, I wish I would have marked that. Basically, she said it as well to the servant. But then as she came closer to the prophet, he could tell that she was grieved because she was crying, and she fell down at his feet. And the servant of the prophet was trying to pull her away, like, you can't do that. And he says, no. She is very grieved in her heart, and the Lord hasn't shown me what it is wrong with her, why she is so grieved. And of course, she proceeds to tell the prophet, and the prophet sends his servant ahead of him and her with his, I think it was a staff, and told him to do this thing, to lay the staff on his face, and that, you know, the boy would be well. When they got there, the servant had done that, and the boy had not become well. And so Elijah, or Elisha, it was Elisha, excuse me, I just saw a glimpse of it on my page. So Elisha goes in, he shuts the door to the house, and he proceeds to do this process where he goes up in the chamber and he lays himself out onto the boy, and he prays. And then he comes down and he paces the house, and then he comes back up, and he does that several times. I can't remember how many times exactly. But then the boy sneezes 7 times, and it raises up and is alive, and he sends the mom into the son that is now alive. But the thing that stuck out to me the most was that phrase, or that line that she said, it shall be well. And so I think it's important for us to all have faith that it shall be well. And I've been thinking about this craziness going on in our world right now, and everything's kind of hitting home for me right now. A lot of people I know are very not doing very well, and so we've been doing a lot of prayer and trying to overcome fears and doubt. And whenever I read that, it shall be well, it just was like, it will be okay. You know, we just have to put our faith in the Lord and trust that He has our best interest at hand, and it shall be well. So anyways, I want to share that thought from my Bible reading today. It really stuck out to me, and I really wanted to just share that. So I hope it encouraged someone today, because as much as it encouraged me. All right, and then the last book that I am reading is Hello Fears. I read chapter 9. I only have one more chapter. I almost went ahead and read it, but then I was like, no, because then I won't be reading this book anymore. I have really enjoyed this book. And so hopefully if you get a chance, you can purchase it and read it as well. I had never heard of Michelle Poler before. I had never heard of this book before. I bought this book on a whim when we were at youth convention, because it just stood out to me. I read the first chapter and was like, hey, this sounds like a good book. So that's why I have this book. It's not because I'm trying to promote it or anything. It's just because I was led to it. And I've really been enjoying it, and that's why I just keep on talking so highly of it, because I do like it a lot. So anyways, in chapter 9, it was Hello Success, how not to self-sabotage your way to success. So she talked about success and how you can actually be fearful of success. And one thing that really stuck out to me off the top of my head was she gave you an opportunity to envision something that you're wanting to do in your life, and then to imagine how it's going to change your life. And actually, if you follow me on Instagram, you would have saw this quote that I took a picture of and put onto my Instagram account, which is at this random journey, and it says, we have to be okay living the life we are living to live the life. We have to be okay leaving the life we are living to live the life we dream of living. And I thought that just like stuck out to me so much. She explained that with success comes change, and it can be one of the hardest things for people to overcome is change. I love change. I personally love change. At least as of this point in my life, I love change. I was the kid who was always rearranging my room. Whenever me and my husband got married, at least every other month I was rearranging the house. It has gotten to a point where our house is so full of stuff that I can't really rearrange it, and I could take you in my living room right now and the living room is in disarray because I started cleaning it, and as I was cleaning it, I was like pulling furniture out. You know how I do. And I left it all pulled out because the change made me happy. And so my son said, "Oh, Mom, you want me to put all this stuff back?" And I said, "No." I said, "I think I'm going to try to figure out a new way to rearrange the living room." I don't know that I will succeed just because there is just so much that would go into trying to figure that out. But it is something that I'm ready to rearrange or change something. So I very much like change. I can't say that I fear change very much. However, the way she kind of brought it forth with, you know, a career change or a major life change, like a move or, you know, like changing jobs, that kind of thing, does kind of put something in me. I think it's more of not the change, but the uncertainty of the change. I think once once the transition happened, I would be happy with whatever change it was. However, the process in getting to that next step is the part that I struggle with, or that I have more problems with probably than anything. But I thought that was such a great quote, and the way she brought about that dynamic in that conversation was really good. And then another thing that she had us do was on this page here, she said we needed to exercise what that would look like for us. And so she said to write, my goal for the next year is to, and she said, do something crazy. Go way out there. Think of something that you've always wanted to achieve or you wanted to do, and put that like how'd she say it? Like extra, like do it bigger than what you thought you wanted to do. And so, of course, I had something in my mind. So I mentally made a note. Well, then she continued on and she said, she's like, all right, now imagine that you achieved it. You just achieved it. It's a year later and you have achieved it. So in your mind, imagine that you have achieved that goal, or that thing that you had put your mind to. And of course I imagined it, and then I turned the page and it said, how did it make you feel? Was you anxious or excited? And you have to think about, was I anxious whenever I thought of that, or was I excited? And she said, take a couple minutes and write down the positive and the not so positive ways in which your life would change if you achieved your goal. So then you were supposed to think through the positive change and the not so positive change of, if I did achieve that and it really became reality, what's going to be great about it and what's not going to be so great about it. Of course, she gives examples from her own life and whenever this actually happened to her, and she had to go through this process too. So anyways, then she says, do you still want to achieve your goal? After you did all that, do you still want to achieve your goal? And if it's yes, you know, like, oh yeah, then she's like, well, then go for it. Like, do it. Work hard and get it done. Like try to go towards that goal. And she's like, but if it's, nope, then she says you might want to rethink your goal and start back at the first step, which is to make a goal and try to figure out how to achieve that goal. So anyways, it was a great read. Let me get back to the page, the key takeaway page. I show you every time, so I might as well show you this time. Anyway, she talked about self-sabotage and how a lot of times we will self-sabotage ourselves. And she was talking about how her husband, as she was writing this chapter, came in and he was supposed to be launching some kind of a curriculum or something online that he was going to pay, people are going to pay money to come in and take of his. And he came in and he was like, oh, maybe it's not right. I'm not ready to do it. Maybe I should just let him have it for free because it's not good enough. And she said, literally, as I'm writing a book and talking about not sabotaging yourself, here my husband comes and he is doing exactly what I'm writing about. And so, of course, she encouraged him to go ahead and launch whatever program it was that he was working on. And she talked about self-sabotage and the imposter, how it's the imposter. Your product and idea works for you. As she said that it's the undervalued. You know more than some people. That's enough to make an impact. And she did talk about how, we'll think, oh, well, I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough about this subject. And so that we will let that fear of not knowing enough not put out our thoughts to other people. I know me personally, that one gets me all the time. I don't feel like I have enough information or that anybody will want to hear what I have to say. And so a lot of times I just will keep quiet, thinking that I'll say something wrong. I know, like in these videos even, I have struggled with, talking about my Bible stories and talking about that kind of stuff for the fact that first, I'm always worried I'm going to get a fact wrong and that would make me feel really bad that I gave false information. And so I'm always very careful with whenever I'm talking about the Bible or trying to tell somebody something from the Bible. And I will sometimes not say anything at all. Even if in my mind I know a scripture, but I don't know where it's located, I'll be talking to someone and a scripture comes to my mind to help them with whatever they're going through at the time. And I will refrain from saying whatever the scripture is, which is so bad. I should not do that. I know that. But I refrain because I don't know where it's found. And from now on, I'm going to try my hardest to not let that fear overcome me. Instead, go ahead and say the scripture and just say, that's in the Bible. I can later go and Google the words from that verse and find out where it's from. Or, they can do the same thing if they are curious. But there's some scriptures that I just, off the top of my head, will come into my head and I know they're in there. I know they're in the Bible. But I might not know where they are exactly. So I have to get braver about speaking that stuff out. So I self-sabotage myself a lot, thinking that I'm not good enough or I don't know enough about the Bible to help people know what's in there. So I'm going to be working on that fear and overcoming my self-sabotage. And then she talked about go from now what to yes and she talked about when you finally achieve a goal, how it can be kind of a moment where you're like, okay, well, I achieved it, now what? And she said, well, instead of doing now what, say yes and she says that acknowledges I got this, but now I'm going to also do this other thing to continue building on that goal. So that was really good. And then she talked about your kind of success is personal. It's 100% personal. So something that I think is, my success, like if I achieved this goal, then I am going to make it. And I have done what I want to get done. But she said we have to be really careful because a lot of people's definition of success looks totally different than ours. And she was explaining, she was talking to a gentleman that was going up on stage. I can't remember, something millionaire, something or other. Anyways, he had worked really hard in his, before he was 30. Before he was 30, he wanted to become a millionaire so that he could have a kid when he was in his 30s. and spend all his time with the kid and not have to worry about money. Well, here he was at a speaking endeavor, and she's like, you know, what are you getting ready to go talk about? He's like, he surprised her and was like, I am going to go up there and speak about something that I'm going against at the moment. And he talked about how he had worked so hard so he didn't have to be away from his son. He's like, I should be with my son right now. And how his idea of success was not traveling around, because she's like, well, you should do TED Talks and you could help so many people. And he's like, well, I have a blog. I can do that at home when my kid's asleep, and then when my kid rises in the morning, I will still be there and we can have fun and I can be there for my kid. And she said his definition of success was totally different than hers, because she wanted to go to every talking opportunity. She wanted to travel all over the place and all that kind of stuff. And that was her definition of success, was to do all this kind of thing. And so she said we have to realize that our definition of success is totally different than everybody else's, and that we need to figure out what our definition of success really is. So I thought that was really great, and she helped you kind of process through all of that and figuring out your definition of success as well. So yeah, I think that's basically it for this chapter. I really have been enjoying this book, like I said. I don't currently have, I think, another book I get to start. I was looking around my room because, like, I have stacks of books everywhere, but, like, here, I'll turn you where you can see. You see that stack right here? These are all books I've read. I've read these ones too, obviously. I could read this one, but it's more of a devotional. It's more of a devotional type book. Sorry, got you guys at a weird angle. And I'm not really wanting to do a devotional type book. I want to do like a book. I ordered a book I'm very excited about, but it won't be here until I think the 21st or 24th. So I will continue reading in my Bible. I will continue reading in Hello Fears for tomorrow. And hopefully I can either come up with a book to read here at the house. I can't think of any off the top of my head that I haven't read yet. And I would like to read something fresh and new. So, we'll see. Right now I'm just going to continue reading in my Bible and Hello Fears. Oh, and I am working on memorizing scripture. So I got on little post-it notes. I should have showed you guys. Little post-it notes. I'll show you guys maybe tomorrow. I wrote out all of the Gospel of John, chapter 1, all in verses on post-it notes. And so I have a stack, like, it's not in here. It was like that thick. And I am going to be memorizing all of chapter 1, hopefully. I have memorized up to verse 8. Today I'm going to be working on hopefully memorizing up to verse 15. I would love to do 10 verses a day, but some of them are lengthy, and so I'm going to give myself a little wiggle room, and hopefully I can at least memorize up to verse 15 today. So that's what I'll be working on the rest of today. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe for future videos, and I will see you again tomorrow.